Back to Wigan Fan TV, and tonight we'll be previewing the Salford Wigan game. It's our first proper preview, I guess. We've been just pretending up until now. We've just been trying to make content, talking about pre-season games. But tonight I'm joined by Matt Macauley and Gareth. And just before I sort of say hello to both of them, I must say that Gareth is actually working tonight on a top secret mission for the BBC with it being transfer deadline day. So if he gets a phone call and he has to leave, you can be assured that Bournemouth are probably about to do some kind of transfer activity. So he might have to say goodbye at some point. But Matt, I'll start with you. Are you well?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. And I think if anybody's watching and they're curious about the board behind you, we're not going to spoil it, but Matt's actually done his predictions for the game against Salford in a poem, and I've asked him not to tell me what it actually says on it, and he's going to read it at the end of the programme. So we're going to build it up possibly as much as we possibly can, and then we'll give you the floor, Matt, at the end of the show.
Build it up and let everybody down. That's
I'm sure you won't, Matt. I'm sure you won't. And Gareth, I guess obviously a busy day for you with it being transfer deadline day and covering Bournemouth. Well, I guess it's not busy, really, is it?
No. I think I just seen a tweet a minute ago that said Bournemouth are the only side not to have signed any in the Premier League side to have signed someone in the transfer window. So it's it's been quiet, thankfully.
Easy money, I guess. But yeah, so Gareth, I think if anybody scrolls down the transfer deadline day live text, you'll probably see a couple of things from Gareth from today. So if you see Gareth Davies commentating on Bournemouth, this is the Gareth Davies. So there you go. So obviously tonight is all about building up to what we've been building up to for the past 3 weeks on Wigan Fan TV. The first game of the season is finally arrived. We don't need to create any new content about pre-season games or anything like that. The genuine bona fide article is with us. So we'll sort of get straight into it. And obviously the squads have been announced today. Matt, I'll start with you just to get maybe your opinion. I'll get rid of that because I can't see Matt's face. We'll get rid of our names off the screen. We'll start with the Salford squad and Salford in general, Matt. The Salford squad, Jake Bibby, Burgess, Evalds, Flanagan, Griffin, Haraki, Greg Johnson, Josh Jones, Craig Kopchak, Jack Littlejohn, Robert Louis, who's obviously been subject to some transfer activity, possibly from Hull KR, Tyrone McCarthy, Lee Mossop, Gareth O'Brien, Junior Sow, Lama Tazi, Logan Tompkins, Chris Wellham and Josh Wood. Matt, your thoughts on the strength of that squad and what you expect maybe from Salford in general this season?
I've read a lot of negative things about their squad, to be honest. People saying that they're in for a lot of hidings, and of course they've lost Marwin Kukash now. They're Kukash strapped, and people have been quite negative about them. I think that's a fairly strong-looking squad, to be honest. I think that's that's a squad that's going to give teams some problems, and I don't know. My hope is that because they've lost pivotal figures, people like Dobson and because the beast isn't with them at the moment, hopefully that they won't quite gel. I'm hoping that's the case for Friday. I'm hoping we'll see a bit of a lack of cohesion from them.
Yeah, I've done my match preview for this game, and to be honest with you, I'm one of the people that wrote Salford off, and then when I saw the 19-man squad, I was hesitant as to whether to change my preview a little bit. I think, like you said, they've obviously lost Dobson, they've lost Todd Carney. They seem to have they've lost a lot of depth to that squad, and they weren't really a big squad to start off with, and I guess that's probably a concern throughout the year for Salford. No youth team, of course, at Salford. We spoke to Colin from Swinton last week when we previewed the Swinton game, and Swinton have pretty much got a business plan to sweep up all of Salford's prospective youngsters, which is fantastic, really. Not for Salford, but Gareth, your thoughts on that 19-man squad? Anybody, obviously Robert Louis is probably the star man in there, but anybody that sort of stands out for you that you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, the guy Littlejohn that they've signed from West, who's obviously a direct replacement for Michael Dobson. He's made over 10, 12 appearances for West in the NRL last year. So he's going to go all right for them. Actually, actually sort of think that Salford will do all right this year. I was thinking about it earlier that there's no real standout sides, I don't think, in the Super League this year. I think it could be the closest competition we ever have where, games will be a little bit more competitive and it's really hard to pick, who's going to be champions. But I think Salford, they're not going to win it, but I think Salford will make the top 8. I don't think they'll be in the qualifiers. Even you take Dobson and you take, they obviously lost Manavatovic through injury. I looked pretty bad. I don't think he'll play this season, was one report I saw. They lost Murdoch Masilla as well. But that's still a pretty strong squad. I mean, if they keep hold of Robert Louis, I don't think Robert Louis will go to Hull KR. I think Hull KR have been a bit naughty there, really. They obviously wanted to try and unsettle the player. They've probably done that, but I think he'll end up staying at Salford. But that's a good squad. On their day, they're capable of beating any side in that league. Say players like Louis and there's a few ex-Wigan boys in there as well. There's Logan Tompkins and there's Mossert, Flanagan as well. I think they'll do all right, and I think it's a strong squad.
Matt, obviously you said it's the post-Kukash era, and we saw there was an interview with Ian Watson over the past couple of days, or maybe even today, maybe not complaining, but sort of certainly pointing out that Wigan spend over the salary cap legally, I may add, in terms of the rules. They spend over it because of the dispensation that they get for marquee players and homegrown players, and Salford now reportedly spending under the cap. How big of disruption do you think this is going to be for Salford this year? I personally thought when Kukash decided to take his money elsewhere, the club would almost sort of crumble, but there looks to be, it's pretty much a similar squad to last year. There looks to be a little bit of stability post Kukash there on that side.
Yeah, I think to give Kukash his due, I don't think he'd have walked away and just left them high and dry. I think this was probably part of a long-term plan, and they were probably planning for it well in advance. And, to some degree, it could work to their advantage because there's nothing quite like a fresh start, is there? To say, look, this is a new Salford Red Devils. We're starting.
How many have we had? How many new Salfords have we had over the past 10 years?
This is a new Salford Red Devils. And, that could galvanise them to some degree.
Yeah.
I thought Watson was actually very fair in his comments too, because, yes, he did point out that Wigan were on 2.2 million or whatever. But he explained that he thought the reasons for it were quite good. We want to keep the likes of Tompkins and Williams and our star players in the Super League.
Yeah, absolutely. There's obviously lots of different ways of looking at the salary cap and why teams spend what they do and why people let other players go. And it's sort of a debate that I think even the people at the top of the RFL, if there is anybody at the top of the RFL at the minute, sort of can't get a grasp on. Jeff has just put this comment. I'll throw this over to you, Gareth. We just mentioned about Robert Louis. Jeff says Salford will get relegated this year, especially if they lose Robert Louis. You disagree with that, Gareth, but what happens if Salford lose Robert Louis?
Yeah, it leaves a big hole, but I still don't think they'll get relegated. I mean, the chap's obviously made a prediction there. I would say that disagree with that. And if you look at some of the other teams, I think Widnes, on paper, you can't judge on paper. It's too early in the season. You've got injuries and form is key. But if you were looking at the squads purely on paper, I'd say you could say that Widnes were weaker than Salford. You could say that Hull KR are weaker than Salford. Probably say Catalans are as well. I don't agree with that. I agree that their task will be made harder if Louis goes, but I don't think he will. I think if he had wanted to go, he would have gone before now, and I think it's a little bit of desperation from Hull KR, to be honest. I think it shows that they're struggling or could struggle, but then they've signed Danny Maguire. Surely Maguire would play at standoff, and that's Louis' position. So where does Louis fit into their into their side. I just think it was odd. The timing was odd. If they're going to go for him, they should have perhaps done it 6 weeks ago. And then sort of like leak a bit of the story to the press. It was, pretty poor form from Hull KR, I thought, to be honest. If Louis goes, their task is going to be made a little bit difficult, or more difficult, should I say. But I don't see them going down. And like I say, if they keep their side fit and in form, they'll make the top 8, I think.
We've got some questions coming in, and we'll try and get to the questions at some point. I want to try and keep us on track with this actually being a preview rather than a Q&A session, but we will certainly go through some of the questions. Particularly, Matt has just asked a good question about Eddie Hearn. I think that's probably a topic for another night, but we'll maybe come to those questions. Any questions, particularly on the game, throw them in, or any comments, and we'll sort of tailor the conversation to include them as best as we can. Let's sort of draw a line under the Salford squad. Let's look at the Wigan squad, Matt. I'll come to you first. I'll just quickly run through the Wigan squad. You've got Sam Tompkins, Davies, Sargentson, Gildart, Williams, Powell, wearing number 7. Club, Luluai, Flower, Tompkins, Joel Tompkins, Liam Farrell, Sutton, Nuasala, Tautai, Isa, Escaray, Marshall, Forsyth, and Hamlin. Overall thoughts on that Wigan side and that Wigan squad, and in particular, Matt, who do you think will drop out of that 19 to actually get into that 17?
I think that's a good looking squad, isn't it? And my gut feeling is Forsyth's going to drop out. And after that, I thought, well, probably Hamlin. But now I'm looking at it and remembering watching Hamlin play at Lee. I think Hamlin will probably drop out, but it's going to be a close call, isn't it?
Between Hamlin and who would you have? Who's competing? Whose place is Hamlin trying to take? Sorry, do you think?
Possibly Joel Tompkins. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the squad now, and I'm glad I'm not making that decision, quite frankly.
It's a good decision. Obviously, it's a good problem to have. I mean, anybody that's not noticed, Joe Burgess is obviously out injured. Sean O'Loughlin's out injured. They should be fit to get on the plane on Saturday morning to travel over to Australia, apparently, which is probably convenient. They probably weren't going to miss out on that. And the same with John Bateman as well. He's obviously still out with his finger injury, but he is rumoured to be hopefully fit for the whole game, if not the Souths game. If you, Matt, with the absence of with Sean O'Loughlin, obviously Ryan Sutton started at 13 in that Lee friendly. Do you think we'll probably go down the same route again?
I think so, yeah. I think that's exactly what the Lee friendly was for. I think, we put out a strong squad to give the coach a good idea of how he's going to start this game on Friday.
Yeah. I mean, we've obviously seen in the past, if you go back to the World Club Challenge game back in Sydney, obviously when Wigan lost and played against Frank Paul Nuasala actually played at 13 himself in that game. We've seen Ben Flower play at 13. It obviously gives you a completely different option to Sean O'Loughlin, and now it basically gives you 3 props rather than having an extra pivot, I would suggest. But Gareth, your thoughts on that 19 and who's missing out on the 17 for you?
Yeah, I think I agree with Matt, to be honest, although Hamlin has done his chances no harm with his performance against Lee, and he's almost been talked up by everyone. I think it would be a little bit of a disappointment to see him left out. I'd actually like to see him have a crack against Salford. I think it. I watched a bit of your live show last night, and the guy you had on, I can't remember his name, compared him to Andy Platt. There it is. You've got it up on there. It is exactly there, and that's a hell of a comparison to make. That is, Andy Platt was probably arguably the best front row forward in world rugby in the late 80s, early 90s. He was well ahead of his game. He wasn't just a battering ram who then sort of, was a bit fiery like some of the other props around. He was a skillful player with the ball in his hand. So to compare Hamlin to someone like that, I'd like to see him out on the pitch, to be honest.
Martin says I'd have Isa starting at loose forward, maybe. obviously Matt suggested, well, maybe I put that suggestion to Matt about Sutton starting at 13 because he did in the league game. Who do you have starting at 13, Gareth? Do you keep it the same as Sutton?
I think Sutton. I think Sutton will. I think the team. I think we said. I think it was me and Matt that did the preview for the league game. I think we said at the time that it would probably be take any injuries out of the equation. The team that started the league game would probably be the team that started against Salford. That was like a fortnight ago we were talking about that. So I don't think there'll be any variation from that side. That started. Although Joe Burgess obviously started that day. Did Joe Burgess start against Lee?
He did. He went off injured.
He did. So
he's hip injury. Yeah,
and it's a hip injury for Burgess, isn't it? I read today. Yeah. Is that right? So I guess Marshall comes in his place, and other than that, I think it'll be the same. I reckon. I think it'll be the same as what started Lee. The bench probably going to have two forwards on the bench, aren't you? Big Frank tends to not start games. He tends to come on.
That's where all the question marks are. It's basically the interchange, I guess, is where the places are up for grabs for at the moment. Just to bring back on that Marshall comment, obviously Liam Marshall in for Joe Burgess would be the straight swap. It would mean that Liam Marshall's playing on his preferred wing. He struggled a lot last year when he had to switch wings. He played his best rugby when he had Joe Burgess as a centre with him, and obviously Joe Burgess isn't really a centre, but it's that wing, whatever it is, left or right, I can never remember. That's his preferred side, but I just think the inclusion of Liam Forsyth is very interesting and probably a little bit of a mind game from Sean Wayne to Liam Marshall to challenge him to maybe really work hard over the last few days in training, because Forsyth is a centre. He obviously played at centre last year, but in the Swinton game he actually started on the wing. Had a fantastic assist for Jack Higginson. If anybody's not seen that, have a look on Wigan TV, watch the highlights. It's sort of a great pass. He did actually sort of come into the centre, and in the second half he moved to centre whilst Jack Higginson went out onto the wing. So I just think that might be a little bit. I expect Liam Marshall to start. He is a bona fide winger, but I just think that's the reason perhaps why they put Forsyth in there rather than maybe a Navarrete, who was awesome against Swinton as well. We'll sort of bring up one of these questions before we move on to sort of talk about the game. One of the questions that's just come through, if I can find it on here, we'll go with this. We'll go with this top one from Stuart again. So subs for him: Escaré, Hamlin, Tausai, Frank Paul, Nuasala. I think what you said, Gareth, you would go with maybe two forwards, perhaps three forwards on the bench. Even in that scenario, you either Willie Isa or Joel Tompkins is missing out on that. Does that, for you, show the strength and depth that we perhaps have this year, even when we've got Sean O'Loughlin missing and we've got John Berman missing? That forward pack, when everyone's fit, there's going to be a lot of challenges in there to get in the side.
Yeah, that forward pack that's the best in Super League. I think that is the best forward pack if they're all fit and they're all playing. Matt was saying that perhaps Joel Tompkins is going to miss out. Joel Tompkins, I think since he's come back from rugby union, he's not been the player that he was before. I mean, who will ever forget his length of the field try at Wembley in the Challenge Cup final of 2011? So that shows how deep our squad is, that you're talking about someone like Joel Tompkins might not even get in the side, even when Sean O'Loughlin's is unavailable. You think that 19-man squad, you've got O'Loughlin would definitely come back in. If he's fit, he will be named in the 19-man squad.
Yeah.
John Bateman's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And Joe Burgess. So you've got three. There's three that would probably almost first choice players that are injured. So no, I think it's a good problem to have if you're Sean Wayne. You've got to keep everyone happy, obviously, but that's what a coach has got to do. That's what you paid your money to do, isn't it? Really. And people said we didn't. People said we should have signed more players. We're saying what a great squad we've got, and we're talking about who can we leave out, who should play, who shouldn't, and all the thought really pre-season for Wigan has been, got rid of Mickey McAlorum and haven't really replaced him, and we haven't really signed anyone. But as we said, and did we need to sign anyone really? That squad is virtually the same squad as last year, and as we've discussed and has been discussed, it wasn't good. It wasn't good enough last year because the players were either out of form or injured. So, hopefully they'll stay in form and they'll stay fit, and we're going to have a good year.
Just one really good thing about last season was because of the injuries, all our players have played in so many different formations, particularly around the pack. So we're kind of here fretting who's going to play loose forward. I don't think that matters too much because I think over the past season, so many of them have actually played that position and they're used to playing with each other in all kinds of different positions in the middle. I think whoever's thrown into that particular position, the pack will be fine.
Yeah, I think that's true, isn't it? I think Joel Tompkins played a fair stint at loose forward last year in Sean O'Loughlin's absence, and like you rightly said, Gareth, there's probably talk of and justification maybe for Tompkins missing out and Gabe Hamlin getting that opportunity, and this is a dual code international player that we're talking about who's got the number 11 on the back of his shirt. This is a good player. Yes, he might not have reached the form since he returned from Saracens, but I think last year we pretty much agree was a write-off for many players because of the circumstances. So to have somebody like Joel Tompkins competing for a place now is no longer guaranteed a place in that 19-man squad. Never mind the match day squad. That internal pressure that's created from that is only going to benefit Wigan throughout the season, so long as everybody stays fit. And obviously, first game of the season, we're missing 3 players already. Hopefully that's a one-off to start off with. But I'm going to throw a question at you, Matt, a little bit off topic, but mainly because we're coming up against Junior Sow. So Martin asks, do you think there's any truth about Hardacre and Junior Sow coming to Wigan? I don't think there is. But Matt, would you maybe take Junior Sow if he ever became available, say, next season?
Ask me again next season when I see who else is available.
Yeah,
and probably I like Junior Sow as a player, and yes, I'd be tempted to take a punt on him. But if we're still in a situation where we've got the squad we have and we're looking to make changes, if we're coming to make a decision on bringing in 1 or 2 players, I'd have to think very carefully about the options available. Which is a brilliant way of me not answering that question, don't you think?
To be honest with you, you've done a fantastic job because that was probably an unfair question of me to ask you, and I think any response is probably greatly appreciated. To be honest with you, let's move on to the game itself. Matt, I'll start with you again. How do you think this is? Don't give me a prediction as yet because it's behind you on the board and I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But first game of the season, they're always, I think, probably depends on the weather. A lot of times we obviously normally get bad weather. At that time, they can become slugfests in the middle of the pitch for the forwards. How do you envisage this going? Bearing in mind, Wigan first teamers have played 40 minutes of a pre-season game.
There are things that worry me about games like this. It could be very cold. It could be sloppy. It's away. It's Salford. We're going to be playing in the away strip, which seems to basically be pajamas this year. That can't be good.
I am in my pajamas then.
There are all kinds of reasons why it could go wrong. So with my optimistic hat on, I think it's like what I said about cohesion. I think that maybe Salford won't quite yet have that cohesion that Wigan will have, and I'm hoping that will kind of win it through for us. And I think Wigan will be wanting to play a slightly quicker game than Salford are wanting to play.
Yeah. Gareth, thoughts on the game? Not necessarily a prediction as of yet, but how do you expect the first game of the season to go?
1-1 lost in the forwards, I think, because of the weather. It's supposed to be summer rugby, yet we start in February, which I think is ridiculous, to be honest. But that's for another day. The pitch there will be heavy as well because obviously they play rugby. it's not like some of the other pitches which haven't had any action since sort of September. I know Wigan's pitch obviously has football as well, but some of the other clubs in Super League, there hasn't been a game on their pitch since sort of August, September time, whereas they've been playing rugby union at Salford's ground. So I think it will be, it could be won and lost in the fours. It'd be sort of an old-fashioned game of rugby league, really. Forwards will trundle the ball up the field, and the halves will try and gain some territory with a good kicking game. And I think earlier I said that I think our forward pack is the best in Super League, and I stand by that. And that's why I think we'll go all right on Friday against Salford, because our forward pack is better than theirs. It will be a forwards game, and we'll come out on top in that battle, I think.
We're getting a lot of comments, and thank you for everybody that's watching and joining in the conversation. We're getting a lot of comments about that kicking game, and we've spoken about it. I've certainly spoken about it on here after that league game, and I think we all probably saw an improvement in the attacking play from Wigan in terms of that kicking game. And I think Andy puts on here talking about Charlie Hodgson as a kicking coach. I don't know what that really means, but he will deal with attacking kicks in general play. Yeah, I mean, I think we saw that at the league game. It wasn't a case of he's been focusing on goal kicking. It was the attacking play. It was Sam Powell kicking. It was George Williams kicking. It was Sam Tompkins kicking. There was a variety of kicks, and they seemed to be in the part, executed very well. To be fair to the lads, and obviously, hopefully, there's another comment on here somewhere about. I think Christopher here, this is a long comment, but basically says, if we don't get instant success from the kicking game, all of a sudden we're going to be getting negative about Charlie Hodgson's involvement and probably asking him to justify his wage. But that's what I'm expecting.
I don't agree. I'm sorry to jump in now. I don't agree with that. I think when it was announced that Charlie Hodgson was coming as a kicking coach, a lot of people just thought, oh, he's going to help whoever kicks the goals, and that's it. But what you've got to remember is, I mean, again, I don't know how much rugby union you guys watch. Obviously, down here, I watch a lot and I cover a lot of rugby union. I think rugby union, kicking in rugby union is a bigger facet of the game than it is in rugby league, really. There's more emphasis. If you kick the ball into touch in rugby league, the opposition are going to get the ball back. There's no doubt about that. In rugby union, it's a little bit more uncertain because of the way the game's restarted. So to have someone...
Only a little bit. Only a little bit more uncertain.
But if you've got someone coming in like Charlie Hodgson, who his thought process would have been different to a kicker in rugby league, if you follow. Yeah. When he had the ball in his hand and he was kicking for territory, the reason he was doing that was totally different than why a kicker in rugby league would. So I think people have sort of missed the point, really. He's not just come in to say to whoever, right, well, kick the ball off the tee a little bit better than this. It's more for having ball in hand, because that was another thing that I think our kicking game was quite poor last season. And is it any coincidence that since Hodgson's come in, it improved 40 minutes or, well, most of the game against
Well, that's the thing,
I don't know, but I think you'll reap the rewards of having someone like that. And what's going to happen if our kicking game goes belly up in a couple of games? What the supporters going to say? Oh, we've got to get rid of this guy. He's not justifying his money. I think that's really unfair to be honest. You have to see, look at the bigger picture and why he's there.
Yeah, no, I think probably give it till Easter time. I think before we start saying Hodgson out, we'll give him till Easter at least. The fact that he came from rugby union is not going to give him much time anyway. But I think we will see a genuine improvement. And I think Matt, you were at the game against Lee. There was a definite improvement in the kicking. Even over that short period.
It was amazing. I mean, I suppose we've become used over the last season or two to watching, so many tackles and then a kick, which turned into so many tackles and then but I was actually quite looking forward to the kicks again. I was kind of thinking, yes, let's get through this tackle count and see where the ball goes next, because it was getting quite fun.
I mean, before you know it, we're going to be enjoying watching rugby union at this rate.
Shut up.
Yeah, no offense, Gareth. You obviously have to watch it or watch a lot down there. So it's the start of the Six Nations as well this weekend. So it's a topical conversation. We'll give them the 30 seconds that it doesn't deserve. Score predictions. Christopher has added his score prediction at the bottom. Salford 14, Wigan 22. I'm going to come to you two in just a second. My prediction on the preview was Salford 10, Wigan 24, I think. And I've gone for Liam Marshall, first try scorer. Gareth, your score prediction, please, and first try scorer.
Salford 8, Wigan 20. Okay. And first try scorer, I went with the winger last time. I'm going to go right out there. I'm going to say Ben Flower. It's going to dart over from 5 yards. Typical prop forwards try.
I mean, if anybody's listening to Gareth's advice, I reckon that'll be at least 30 or 40 to 1. It's worth 50p. So, I think that's. I want to put a bet on Palliasina, first try scorer. I remember the game; it was against Hull. Put £1 on. It was 40 to 1, and I won. And I will always go for a prop now because of that as first try scorer. If I'm at the game. We're going to finish this evening. No pressure, Matt, but we're going to finish the match preview. You've got our score predictions. We haven't got Matt's score prediction yet, but we're going to finish off with Matt, and I'm going to let you have the final word, Matt. So as soon as you finish, we'll probably go off. Gareth, thank you so much again for taking the time out on transfer deadline day. It's probably a good sign that it hasn't been too busy for you. And if anybody was hoping to sort of text in to Sky Sports News with any sort of snippets of who Bournemouth might sign because you were watching Gareth Davies on Wigan Fan TV, answer his phone. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. So
nothing whatsoever.
Nothing's happened. So it's probably everyone that's watched this has probably spent the time in a much better way than watching Sky Sports News this evening. Thanks for everybody that's watched. Gareth, again, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll see you on here over the next couple of weeks very soon. This will be the last broadcast from the UK for a little while. I'll be doing them in Australia next week, and if anybody's at the game on Friday, I'll be there before the game to try and get some match predictions from people on camera, and I'll be there after the game to get some match reaction. Hopefully we win. We don't want this to turn into Arsenal Fan TV after the first game and going viral because somebody said something. And so let's hope for a win just for my sake. But if anybody is at the ground, my name's Sean. Come up and say hello. I'll probably be in a big parka. I've got a beard and I'll have a microphone. Come and say hello and come and get on camera, and we'll have some fun. Matt, the floor is yours. Score prediction and the prediction poem, please.
My score prediction will be Salford 14, Wigan 22.
Very close. Very close on that. Okay, so Matt, the prediction poem that we've built up for the past half an hour, take it away.
Prediction poem. Here it comes. Okay. Salford's new devils in red will wish that they stayed in their bed. Wigan's speed of attack will be too much for their pack, and they'll end up holding down to slow down the ruck instead.
Well, I mean, that is... like I said off air, you've raised the bar too high almost, and I feel like this is now a weekly feature, and that anybody that comes on the show will have to bring some form of art with them, poetry, song, maybe do a cross stitch and show us anything like that. But thank you so much. Yeah, anything like that. Maybe I'll get a didgeridoo over Australia, and maybe I can sort of learn that. But that was spectacular. Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks again for taking the time out of your evening to join us, and thanks to everyone that's watched. And we'll see you all on Friday. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.